What's going on, boys? Welcome back to another SideSwipe video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from the usual gameplay stuff. I want to talk about something that some of you may already be aware of, but I only recently fully learned about. It's definitely no secret that I attribute SideSwipe's lack of content and new updates directly to the fact that the game is not monetized, and I still fully believe that. In fact, maybe even more so after learning why SideSwipe isn't monetized. And I imagine that it has something to do with the same reason that you can no longer download Fortnite on iOS devices. And the answer ultimately boils down to just one word: money. To understand why SideSwipe is not able to make any money, we first have to talk about the man in charge of the company that owns Psyonix, and that is gonna be Mr. Timmy. Timmy has been the CEO of Epic Games since 1991, and on May 1st of 2019, his company unfortunately purchased Psyonix, which does mean that in a way, they kinda bought Rocket League and SideSwipe as well. Psyonix is in charge of these games, but they do have Daddy Epic watching over them at all times. Now, being owned by Epic isn't enough on its own to prevent SideSwipe from making any money, but what is enough to cause that to happen is the lawsuit that started in 2020 between Epic Games and Apple. I'm not going to be covering the full details to this court case, but the main gist of the lawsuit is that Timmy did not like the fact that Apple forced developers to use their app store while also forcing those developers to pay 30% of revenue earned. And that does make sense because the man is only worth $4.1 billion. He is practically a broke boy, so I don't blame him for wanting that extra 30%. In all actuality, I do see his point, but still. So in order to get around this, Epic sent an update out for Fortnite to be reviewed by Apple. Apple has to review updates that get pushed out for things that are on their app store, but this particular update had some secret code in it that was not easily identified by the reviewers. This patch was ultimately approved with no problems, and Epic was allowed to update Fortnite with it, and then once the update was already out, they sent out a hotfix, which is usually just a small quick update to address bugs or small exploits, but in this case it actually activated the hidden code and allowed users to make purchases on Fortnite without Apple receiving any of the money. They even offered users a 30% discount whenever this went live, since they didn't have to pay Apple their cut. But within hours of the update dropping, Apple removed Fortnite from the App Store and said that Epic broke their terms of service, which they kinda did. After being removed from the App Store, Epic decided to file a lawsuit against Apple, stating that they have become a monopoly and were using anti-competition practices. To break it down a little bit, they're basically saying that it's not fair for Apple to force all their developers to use their store if they have to go ahead and pay that 30% cut, and that they're also a monopoly because there's not really anywhere else that people go to put their apps on. If you don't have your app on the App Store, then it's pretty much not out there, is how Epic was trying to look at it. The results to the lawsuits have been kinda murky, with both companies taking some decent blows in the ordeal, but the absolute worst thing to happen in this event was Epic losing their App Store account and not being allowed to sell things through the App Store. Losing this account prevents them from putting any of their games on the Apple Store. Now you might be wondering what this has to do with our game, since SideSwipe was able to be released on the App Store. Since Psyonix is owned by Epic, they are affected in similar ways to them. I'm not sure how all of the legal stuff behind allowing them to publish a game but not make any money on it goes, but I could see that being the only reason Psyonix was allowed to release SideSwipe. If SideSwipe was monetized, Epic would receive a cut of their revenue, which would be a way of them getting around the Apple ban. I also doubt Timmy would really want SideSwipe to make money while Apple's 30% cut is still in effect. Unfortunately, it does seem that Apple has been mostly winning in the lawsuit, which means the 30% cut won't be overturned anytime soon, but there is still a sliver of hope left. The courts have determined that Apple should have to allow third-party stores on mobile platforms. This means that Epic could be allowed to make their own app store and then put any games that they want on their own store and then charge customers accordingly without Apple getting any of the cut. At the time, this effect is only for players that are in Europe, but there are speculations that this could be made available worldwide eventually. If this does end up coming to fruition, then SideSwipe could be monetized, which would allow the developers to dedicate more time to the game, which benefits everybody. This could mean brand new content coming out with updates again, as well as major changes to the game itself. Another way that I've speculated SideSwipe could make money is if it was ported to the PC or console version of Rocket League, or maybe even as its own game on those platforms. Ideally, whenever Unreal Engine 5 comes out for 3D Rocket League, they'll be able to add an option in that game itself to play SideSwipe. If this was the case, they could add things to purchase in that version of SideSwipe, since that one would be through Sony, Steam, and Microsoft instead of Apple and Google. Definitely a big dream, but I would absolutely absolutely love to see SideSwipe thriving again thanks to a revived player base and developers that are allowed to update the game in good ways rather than the current path that it's been going down. And that pretty much sums up why SideSwipe is in its current state. I definitely don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes, and I'm sure I jumbled up a few of the sections of the lawsuit and the results of said lawsuits, but for the most part, everything should be mostly correct. I really hope the two companies can figure out an agreement that works for everybody, and I hope to see you guys on the SideSwipe grind soon. That's it for now though, and I'll talk to all of you guys in the next one.